I 25 male, caught my wife 24 female, cheating 4 days ago. Need help moving forward. To provide some context, my wife and I met when we were approximately 10 years old. We've had a thing for each other since we were kids, but it wasn't until we were 18 that it became serious. I knew she was madly in love with me, and I was madly in love with her. Therefore, the only logical next step was marriage. When we were 21, I proposed to her on Valentine's Day over a weekend away, and the rest is history. We both make ends meet with respectable careers, lovely well-kept homes, no children, a great group of friends, and polite families. In my opinion, everything was wonderful. When I started using her phone, the adultery began. I saw messages to a man from her workplace. This wasn't overt flirting, but it was unusual and provocative to me. He'd say things like, "I've had such a long day at work." And she'd say things like, "I've had such a long day at work." I confess that I have a temper, and I was not going to let this happen. I told her she couldn't contact him, that she couldn't block him in front of my face, and that she wouldn't have me if she did. She did all I requested of her. This leads me to Sunday evening. My cousin and I run a company together. We began it at the age of 20 and it quickly took off. We have an office where I sometimes sleep when my job load becomes too much for me. I generally order in and get the job done, and if it's too late, I'll sleep it off. So I texted my wife about lunchtime. Me and cousin are probably going to be held here all night. I'll order in so you can dine without me and don't have to wait up. I adore you. She answered minutes later, saying she was sorry she wouldn't be able to meet me that night, but she wished me luck with my job and stated she loved me as well. Everything was fine. Think about late that night. I decided that work had eaten up too much of my weekend and that I needed to visit my wife, whom I assumed also wanted to see me. So, about 7 p.m., I started making my way home. When I arrived home, I heard voices upstairs but couldn't make them out. So I walked up and saw my wife and the man. I acknowledged that I didn't manage it as well as I could have. I began by hitting his as he attempted to look, "Dude, I'm sorry." I threw him out and told him he had to go home without his shoes. My wife was frantic from the time. I stepped in, and I almost got violent with her as well, but I didn't. Throughout it all, she screamed and cried, stating it was a foolish mistake, but by this time, my fears from the text conversations had been validated. I constantly urged her to conserve her breath, and that I didn't want to hear any of her illogical justifications. I debated returning to the office, but I instructed her to gather her bags and remain wherever she could. I needed her out of my sight. Since then, she has remained with her closest buddy. Since then, her friends and family have blown up my phone, but I've ignored them. I did, however, inform her father of what had occurred. He was furious and sided with me. My rage has given way to regret at the idea that our nearly lifetime adventure has been thrown away for some sleazy person from her workplace from the first day. I've been keeping busy, but I'd be lying if I claimed I haven't spent every spare time sulking / crying lamenting over what occurred. I'll be calling attorneys first thing tomorrow morning to start the divorce process. Update. A lot has transpired since the previous article. I apologize in advance for the length of this post. Also, I'd want to express how much I liked everyone's comments on the first post. I've done quite a few things since the initial post. I had my STD tested and everything was okay. I turned over my portion of the company to my business partner, relative, temporarily until the divorce is finalized. I terminated her phone contract that I paid for. I took down all of her photographs, I packed all of her clothing, and I've been up with someone. So let me get started. The fact that my STD test came back negative was a positive start, but it wasn't enough to lift my spirits. I won't sugarcoat it, the issue still bothered me. I couldn't forget about it since she and her friends were continually blowing up my phone. I ultimately went to meet with her parents. Her mother tried to get me back into the family, but her father knew I was set in my ways and was disappointed in his daughter. This occurred around 2 days following the post. I like her father and think we'll keep in touch since we're both simple guys who understand one another. I've always admired him, and it's a pity his daughter is preventing me from officially being his son anymore. I ignored her friends, who had phoned me more times than I could count. It helped that I spent a lot of time with my friends and family. I had a buddy over and we spent a few hours photographing her and removing all of her belongings from the home. This was really soothing for me, and it felt like I was removing a stain from my life. It was much more beneficial than I anticipated. Divorce processes have begun. However, I fear I will have severe difficulties with her signing the documents and so forth. I've already signed away my stake of my business, so she can't get her paws on it. I've avoided any communication except with attorneys, as you all instructed. I debated using the man's wife as leverage in case he attempted to bring charges against me. I laid hands on him when I caught him in my home. Finally, I reasoned, why not? And messaged her on Facebook. She originally believed me, but then stated he informed her it was a lie. All I had to do was show her the doorbell video of him approaching my front door and getting escorted out without his shoes. I don't believe he's still blissfully married. Now for the next chapter. My mom believed I'd like attending her work's Christmas party. I figured why not? I hadn't gone out since the event and needed a break. I went and was introduced to the daughter of one of her coworkers. We hit it off and left the party together, but we didn't that night. She came over a couple nights before Christmas Eve and we hit it off right away. We upped many times and she stayed for 2 nights. Now, she's not a love at first sight substitute for my wife, but she is a nice lady who is surely keeping me company at a time when I need it the most. Christmas Day was more difficult than I imagined since I'd spent it with my so for a long, but having my family around me, feeding and watering me, helped a lot. Overall, I believe I am dealing much better than I anticipated. I just wanted to thank everyone who reached out to me, everyone who left a kind remark, and everyone who has gone through the same situation and is still standing strong. Story 2. She cheated and I thought we were a success story. I blogged last Sunday on what would have been our 23rd wedding anniversary, but I never told my story. Someone who wrote a kind remark urged me to share. So here we go. My wife and I met in college, married in graduate school, and have 2 wonderful children. There were occasional challenges, but overall, life was really wonderful. We were seated at the kitchen table during tax season 3 years ago. We were talking about money, not just the monthly budget, but the larger picture. I thought it was strange that she was texting during such a crucial discussion. It wasn't because I was messaging the kids. They were both at home. I'm still not sure what possessed me to steal her phone from her grasp in the middle of a text. I'd never suspected anything before, at least not consciously. She gave me a horrified look, so I dashed into the other room with the phone and shut the door. The text thread was about her AP and a weekend in Vegas. I was really taken aback. She was shouting and weeping as she pounded on the door. I pretended to be her and texted him. I can't wait to get between the covers with you again, I wrote. He confirmed that they were sleeping together in his answer. I phoned my brother when I was confined in the room. He came over and persuaded my wife to spend a few days with him. Naturally, drama followed, but after a few months of my living aboard the boat, we decided to attempt to reconcile. We attended weekly counseling sessions both together and separately. For approximately a year, we each attended to 2 sessions every week. Some ground rules were established. One of the rules was that she never contact AP again. It wasn't a sacrifice since she had no work or social ties to him other from the affair. It was a true struggle. I was filled with rage, anxiety, agony, hope, and despair. Things gradually began to settle into a new normal. I began to love life with her again. I assumed we were a success story. I used to often check for AP phone number in our phone company's call record without her awareness. As time passed, I did less and less searching. I performed the search almost a year ago, again without suspicion, and there it was. They had 2 calls of 2 minutes apiece, followed by 2 calls of more than 30 minutes each. I dialed AP phone, and his name was stated on the voicemail. I decided that leaving a recording of my thoughts for him would be a bad idea, so I hung up. I was devastated. All of the recovered trust vanished in an instant. I started by surreptitiously shifting money around, changing passwords, hiring a lawyer, and obtaining a place to reside. I approached her after that. I informed her that she had violated the ground rule and that I was leaving and filed for divorce. I went on to emphasize that there was nothing she could say or do to alter my view, and that further conversation on the subject was worthless. Drama, of course, followed. I've been gone for over a year. We get along well as co-parents, and the divorce process has gone well. Our children are doing well and are generally content. Those are, I suppose, successes.